Namah Shri Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Swamine Tapaharine.
So, namaste. So, we discussed about the Sharira Manasa Rogas and what are the treatments for these diseases. And we discussed about Karmaja Vyadhi and Doshaja Vyadhi as well as the combination. And we also understood that a very deep analysis is required to find out whether something is due to past karma or present karma. So it's only a question of whether it's past karma or present karma. It's always karma. So if we cannot find a particular reason to account for an event, then we may have to attribute it to adrishta. That's why they use the word adrishta for that, because you're not able to see a visible cause or a reason. Whenever there is a physical cause or reason, we should try to understand that and rectify our action. So current action can be rectified logically. Like for example, if a flight crashes, then they try to find out what was the cause. Was it there is a big like post-mortem that is done on that accident, and we learn a lot from that. So you look at the cockpit voice recordings, we try to find out what happened. Was it technical error? Was it pilot error, human error? So in this way, it is analyzed. And sometimes you can find that bizarre reasons, for bizarre reasons, these accidents happen. So when you cannot find a human error or lack of, some lapses from the human side, when no such reason is there, and if accident happens, then you can attribute. So before we attribute it to past karma, we have to analyze it very, very carefully, because Ayurveda is a science of Purushakara, not a fatalistic system which is always blaming past karma for everything that happens. No, Ayurveda aims to tell us what we can do in our personal lives. So it always, accounts for the current action, and then we correct it. So this is the thing. Same thing is applied for treatment also. When somebody is sick or fallen sick, we analyze it very, very carefully. That's the Ayurvedic approach. And when there is an adrishta factor, then maybe if you have a good astrologer, and then you can consult. But first we have to make sure it is due to adrishta. So that's what we discussed in the last class, and now we are going to discuss the gunas of the doshas. So what are the doshas? It is very difficult to understand. And we may think that Doshas have been attributed with both guna and karma. So our primary thinking is that doshas could then be considered as dravyas. Now this is a big debate. Many of us think of doshas as physical substances. Yeah, autism, brain development issues. See, we say diseases are adi bala pravritta, then janma bala pravritta. So matraja pitraja, coming from father and mother, is there. So see, was there a chance that we could have averted it? That is the question that you must ask. We can attribute it purely to Daiva when there was no chance to have averted it. Even if we had taken all care, most of the time our problems happen because of lack of care or lack of attention, lack of shraddha. Sometimes, even with lack of shraddha, people get away. Sometimes a little lack of shraddha can, one moment, looking in the wrong direction, maybe causing a crash. So that's why most of the time it's a combination of both. Past Daiva predisposes you for, so that people say, that's why they would say it's not a good time, take extra care because luck is not in your favor. A slight mistake might lead to something very severe if you have a load of past karma. So, what I am trying to follow is I don't like to blame, I bring in karma only as the last resort. First, check autism. Was there some reason, something that was administered at that time? Now they say vaccines may cause autism. So many factors are attributed. Disturbed gut microbiome may cause autism. So should we try to correct that? See, it's important to know the cause, because if you say karma and then do homa without correcting the gut microbiome, autism will not get cured. So if gut microbiome is the cause for autism, then that has to be corrected, not simply doing some ritual. So there is no shortcut here. We have to analyze the cause and then only decide what we should do, whether we should address the daivam or whether we should address the actual reason behind it. Majority of the cases we can find some visible sarvam tat hetumat hetor abhava nanu vartate. There is a cause for everything, and when the cause ceases, that event also ceases to be. That's what Ayurveda says. So, in this very deep analysis, after having searched for all possible causes, when to say that the cause is adrishtam is not easy. It means you have done such a thorough investigation, and then you are telling it is adrishtam. So, rule out everything. So, many known causes of autism are there. So, if that is the cause, then you have to tell. Another way to know whether a disease is karmaja is kriyaghna karmaja rogaha. This is another characteristic of karmaja vyadhi. Kriyaghna. They won't respond to the right treatment also. So suppose you get a disease which has a treatment but is not responding to that treatment. Kriyaghna. Karmaja vyadhis will kill the effect of treatments. So when a clearly effective treatment is not working, then you have to think about karma, and then you have to do something additional. Actually, what is needed is to surrender your ego, cleanse your mind. That is the best Deva Vipasana Chikitsa. But since it's not easy to do that, we created so many rituals which will indirectly help us to cleanse our minds and reach a state of harmony with the universe. When you connect again back to the universe, then the karma chaya will happen. That was called in the Atharva Vedic times as Prayashchitam. The Prayashchitam is done, everything gets equalized again. But it's not easy. You cannot tell every sick person, now go and remove your ego, surrender. You cannot tell directly. You have to tell indirectly. I have to go and feed so many people, go and fall at the feet of some. It's all meant to, release your ego and your inner, shortcomings. But it is done indirectly through what we call as Deva Vipassana. So I hope that point is clear. Yeah, atheist patient, that's why we say, no, we were not, atheist is the modern concept. In our tradition, we did not have that. We had Astika Nastika, which is not exactly atheist. But what we have to, it is easy to convince an atheist also to do something good for society. We have to tell them that it will be help you, it will release some psychological things. You please do these things. It is good for the world. That's all. We don't need to tell them about God or in any way. Karma is not about God, because the Supreme is just a witness. There is no point in pleasing the Supreme to get redeemed. I mean, we have to do the prayashchitam. So we have to tactfully make them do it. Even to a theist, we cannot tell directly. That's what I was telling. We have to use our janasya ashaya malakshya yo yatha paritushyadi tam tathaivanu varteda pararadhana pandita. You have to be a pararadhana pandita. If you want to be a good practitioner, you must know the mind of the person. And janasya ashaya malakshya, after knowing that inner ashaya of that person, yo yatha paritushyadi, how, in what way when you behave that person will respond and be happy. Tam tathaiva anuvarteda. So your practice becomes a worship. You worship the other person. Whether he is a theist or atheist is not our issue here. So, and sometimes I also think when you cannot do the Vipassana Chikitsa also, that is also karma. That is the karma of the atheist. That he has become an atheist and is not receptive. We don't need to worry about. We have to keep trying do our best. In the way they understand, we can try to explain. What I have seen is very big atheists also, when they are confronted with such difficulties, they are willing to try anything. Most of the people will secretly do many of these things. When it comes to, after they suffer for some time. I know so many cases. They reach a point where they say, okay, let us try it anyway. I don't like it, but my mother is saying so. For her pleasure, I will do it. They will find some excuse. So it's not that they will not always agree also, but we can try our best. Everything doesn't have solution. We have to be a krita kritya. We should try our best in all circumstances. That's all we can. Try to do our best. If we use our intelligence, we can, pull the best shots in all situations and then leave the rest. Everything doesn't have a solution. Some people are difficult, some are easy to handle. That's how life is. Is that clear? So, yes. Suruksha Shito Lakhu Sukshmaschalotha Vishadakhara Viparita Gunair Dravyaihi Marutaptham Prashamyati Sasneham Ushnam Tikshnam Chadravamamlam Saram Katu Viparita Gunai Pittam Dravyairashu Prashamyati Gurushita mrudusnigdha madhura sthira pichilaha sleshmana prasamam yanti viparita gunair gunaha. So, there is a difference in the way Vagbhada and Charaka have explained the gunas of doshas. Vagbhada says, Tatra Rucho Lagu Shida Khara Sukshmas Chalonila. He is attributing these gunas to the doshas. He says, the Vata is Ruksha, Lakhu, Shita. Vata is like that. But Vagbhada, Charaka says, Viparita Gunair Dravyair Maruta Samprashamyati. Yes. No, you have to think about that. I'll make you think about it, whether doshas are really dravyas or gunas or karmas. Today, when we are talking about doshas, we say they are functional units of the body. I can tell you the community is totally confused. If you ask an Ayurveda person, they will say dhatu is a structural element and dosha is functional element. Have you heard of this? People telling like that? Commonly when you are translating. Doshas are considered to be functional and dhadus are considered to be structural. So if you are telling doshas are functional, then what does it mean? They are karmas. They are not dravyas. So we are conveniently, the fact is we have never really thought about what is really a dosha. तत्र आस्थनि स्थितो वायु पित्तं तु स्वेदरक्तयो श्लेष्मा शेषेषु तेनैषाम् आश्रय आश्रयिणां मिथ यदेगस्य तदन्यस्य वर्धनक्षपणौषधम्. The doshas are in ashraya, they are ashrayis, they are ashrita in the dhatus actually. Dhatus are the ashrayas. And doshas ashrayi. So some people say this is because sthula sukshma bhavena, but doshas are nothing but the gunas that we see in the dhatus. And but then we may ask, are not doshas removed? Dosha shuddhi is there. We are removing kapha. That is in the mala rupa. Excess gunas that accumulate in the body are excreted from the body from time to time. And what we see is the doshas in the mala rupa, which we call as phlegm, bile, or air. That is only doshas in the mala rupa. Doshas are actually, dhatu is the structure and dosha is the property of the dhatu. That is why the gunas are indicated here. Doshas are explained in terms of gunas. Tatra rukshu lakhu shita sukshmas chalo tatra shito lakhu sukshmas chalotha vishadakhara viparita gunair dravyair maruta samprashamyati. So the reason here is that when you want to treat vata, we have to use a sequence, a pattern of gunas, a configuration of gunas which are opposite to this. So dosha is introduced as a pattern of gunas or a configuration of gunas. When these gunas are seen together, we get the function of vayu. Himali, are you able to follow what I am trying to say? So body has structure, property and function. Dhatu is the structure, dosha is the property, and together they produce what we call as the function of the human being. So, what is the relationship between substance and property? It is the property which determines the quality of the substance, is it not? So you have rotten apple and you have fresh apple. Both are apples, right? From point of view of Dravya, both are apple. What is the difference between rotten apple and fresh apple? What makes them different?
Guna.
Yes, the gunas have changed. So, when the gunas in the dhatus reach a certain point, a cut-off point, the function of the dhatu gets disturbed. That point we call as kopa. So doshas are increasing, chaya, then kopa, and then prashama. This is the doshas in our body continuously fluctuating, chaya, vriddhi, and samatva. So when they are chinaha, vriddhaha, samaha. So both when they are china and vriddha, they are affecting the function of the dhatu. When they become reduced, when the qualities become less, so less sweetness. You take an apple which is bland. It doesn't looks like an apple, but then it has no quality, right? A sandal without smell. It only looks like sandal. It doesn't have quality. So our dhatus require the qualities. So we are mapping the quality of our dhatus of our body through the framework of doshas. So when you study doshas, you're checking whether my body has all the necessary qualities. That is why doshas are described in terms of gunas. Ruksha shito lakhu sukshma chalotha vishadakkara viparita gunair dravyair maruda samprashamyati. So it means that when these gunas increase in the body, we experience the symptoms of vata increase. See, we can say what has happened. Ruksha Shita Laku Sukshma Chala Vishada Khara Guna has increased in my body. Is it easy to say like that? What has happened? Guru Shida Mrudu Snigdha Madhurasthira Pichila Guna has increased. See, it's very difficult for conversation. So they said, let us call these things together as Kapha. So when I say Kapha has increased, it means Guru, Shita, Mrudu, Snigdha, Madhura, Sthira, Pichila gunas have increased in the body. And Viparida Gunaihi Tesham Prashamam. You use substances with opposite properties, then it will be brought back to balance. So when I am diagnosing a patient or assessing a patient, what I am trying to find out is which gunas have increased, which gunas have decreased. And instead of telling the name of so many gunas and their patterns, I'm simply saying Vata Pitta has increased. Can you tell me when Vata Pitta has increased, what gunas will have actually increased in the body? When Vata and Pitta increases together, which gunas will increase?
Pitta, sir.
Huh?
The pitta. Maybe because Vata is Yogwahi.
Acidity.
I have asked you what gunas will increase in the body when Vata and Pitta increase together. How will you explain it in the terms of gunas? Yes, Hemali, you're right. Ruksha, Ushna, Lakhu. Sukshma, all other gunas will be there, but Shita will be replaced by Ushna. So Rukshoshna gunas are increasing in the body. Now, if these Rukshoshna gunas increase in the skin, what will happen? If these Rukshoshna gunas increase in Rasadhatu, what will happen? If these Rukshoshna gunas increase in Mamsadhatu, what will happen? It will be different, right? So can you tell me what will happen if Laku Ruksha Guna, Ushna gunas increase too much in Rasadhatu? What will you experience?
Some problem in stomach, some gas formation.
No, Rasa Dhatu. Allergies on skin, specifically when Twak is affected. Rasa Dhatu, when Rukshoshna Guna increases, a life-threatening situation will develop. It can happen in summer.
Weight loss, weight loss.
That is all very late, after a long time. In summer, when there is not emaciation, dehydration, Mahalakshmi has told correctly. Dehydration. This is called in Ayurveda as Trishna. So now we have to increase or do opposite gunas. Snigdha, Shita gunas have to be induced in the body at the level of Rasadhatu, specifically Rasadhatu. Then only dehydration can be overpowered. So every disease, if it happens on skin, you will have conditions like herpes zoster or rashes that are spreading all over the skin. Then we can know that this is Vata Pitta has increased or aggravated in the skin, or Rukshoshna gunas have increased in the skin. Now you have to do a treatment for Rukshoshna, opposite to Rukshoshna, but it should be reaching the Twak also. Both the Ashraya and Ashraya have to be treated together. Is that clear? So when we see any disease, we have to understand what gunas have increased or decreased.
So
And-
for this case, if one felt very hot, then the cold sort of thing is required in body to balance the same thing, the opposite you have told earlier.
Yes. Opposite is necessary, but it's not simply giving an opposite. Where has these gunas increased? Is it Rasa Dhatu? Then the treatment is different. If it is Twak, it is different. If it is Rakta, it is different. If it is Mamsa, it is different. So we have to consider not only the gunas that have increased or decreased, but the substratum in which it has also increased or decreased. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Who asked that question?
My name is Sanjay Mukherjee, sir.
Oh, okay. Are you a Ayurveda student or doctor or?
No, sir. Right now, I am in environment profession. I am studying.
Okay. Yeah, I know. See, I am going into the topic at the level of Ayurveda medical profession. We have reached that point.
It is very interesting. Actually, I have find lot of new things. So my acumen is to know how we can find ourselves in better. The age will come and we'll be grown older. So it's a preventive measure through our Shastra Dharma, and the lecture you are providing is a mesmerizing. It's a hallucination effect. I am going to somewhere else through your language.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to see how we can understand this in a practical way so that, not only Ayurveda professionals, but humanity as a whole can make use of this wisdom. Ayurveda was written for the whole of humanity, and some people will practice it as a profession. Everybody has to learn it to protect their health, as you rightly said, to achieve healthy aging, living longer. That's necessary for everybody. Yeah. Now that is a very elaborate concept, Hemali. That is the whole part of Ayurvedic diagnosis. Dosha Dushya Samurchanam. Understanding a disease as Dosha Dushya Samurchanam. Which part or dhatu of the body is affected and how it has been affected. Today we are using imaging, we are using blood tests and all to understand. Now, when you look at a fatty liver, what has happened in fatty liver? Liver is the sthana of which dhatu?
Pittam.
Rakta Dhatu.
Yes, Rakta dhatu and Pitta dosha. It is the seat of Rakta dhatu. So there, when fatty liver happens, what is happening? What is happening to liver?
The rakta, the blood, may not flowing properly. Some sort of obstruction may generate. So the normal function is hampered.
Yes, actually, according to Ayurveda, the snigdha guna is increasing in the liver, which means kapha and medas is accumulating in the liver, which has properties opposite to that of rakta and pitta. When cirrhosis happens, you can see the liver becomes what gunas increase. When liver cirrhosis happens, the liver shrinks, its weight gets reduced, it becomes dry and coarse. So, what gunas can we see? What are the gunas?
Vata.
Yes, it is vata. And when
Does this mean that when doshas occur, do they differentially affect different organs in the body? How
yes,
is it determined? Like,
yes, we see, seeing what happens to that organ, we can understand what gunas and what doshas are involved. That's what I'm trying to say. If the when the liver becomes enlarged and filled with fat, we say it is fatty liver. This is actually, it's like sneha vyapat, excess sneha accumulating in the liver and interfering with its natural functions, leading eventually to the degeneration because of srodha. Kapha and medas will cause complete srodha in the liver, and it will lead to kshaya. And in that kshaya avastha, the liver is becoming ruksha now. It's going the opposite direction, and that is cirrhosis. And when it becomes extremely ruksha, then it is like when the hay becomes very dry, it can catch fire. So then pitta will start coming in after that excessive dryness, and when that happens, hepatocellular carcinoma manifests. So Ayurvedically, we have to understand what happens to the organs in terms of the gunas. When the heart muscle weakens, we can say Kabha has reduced and Vata has increased. Everything. We can use modern diagnostics also, but we should interpret it in Ayurvedic terms.
but does this mean that different organs might be having different doshas at a particular point of time?
Yeah, yes. There is a normal configuration of doshas for different organs. Now, liver is normally the sthana of Rakta and Pitta. Lungs is the sthana of Kapha with Rakta also. Raktaphena prabhavo puphusaha. Heart is Mamsa Dhatu and Rakta Dhatu. Sonida Mamsa Prabhavajam Hridayam. Kidney is Rakta Meda Prasad. So every organ Sushruta has identified it. Now, if they are, so see, that is what we are seeing in a scan, no? Whether it is in the normal appearance or whether it has changed. So shrunken kidneys or enlarged kidneys or the CMD, corticomedullary differentiation, is lost. It's a very bad sign in kidney disease. So how do we interpret it in doshic terms? If we don't interpret in doshic terms, we cannot treat their condition. So you cannot see dosha. See, the dhatus are like the walls, and dosha is the painting on that. Without the wall, there is no painting. Now I cannot. Now today I watched Apple. Have you heard about this new development of Apple Vision virtual reality tool? Have you heard? No. So you can, if you wear that, you can see the world and also impose virtual reality on it, both together. So if somebody comes, it will detect, it will make you see, then the other person can also see your eyes, but your screen will also be seen, your virtual reality will also be seen. You can live, I don't know what are the psychological consequences of this, but they have made something like that. Which means you can have images without walls. Today, if we want to project something, we need a wall, is it not? I cannot project it into air. So that is the way the doshas are gunas. They need a substratum to manifest. So where have they manifested? So excess kapha in the lungs, it will cause a particular symptom, right? Person is gasping for breath. There is a tightness in the chest. Now, how do I assess it, whether it is due to vata or kapha? Can anybody tell me? How will you clinically assess? A patient is coming to me with some chest congestion and problems. Now, my doubt is yeah.
For Vata, some sort of
So,
water accumulation will be there, and for Kapha, some respiratory problem that he will be not able to take oxygen in normal course. Some sort of this type of thing may happen for Kapha because that the inlet line from nose to the lung will be choked, and the air ratio, air to lung ratio will be decreased, and he will suffer from short of breathless.
Anybody else? Any suggestion?
Asthmatic and emphysema.
Asthma. What happens in asthma actually? How do you know whether it is kapha involvement or vata involvement more? Accordingly, medicine has to be given.
Than.
See, when it is vata, what can happen is hyper reactivity.
Leukocytes.
Bronchoconstriction will happen. Spasm, bronchospasm as they call. So some asthma patients, I have seen this clinically. That's how I distinguish between whether it is vatic or kaphaja. Accordingly, the treatment has to be given. So, see, this is how I cannot see vata or kapha there. I can see only the lungs, right?
So asthma also can be of different origin.
Yes, different ways it can manifest. I was an asthma patient. I cured myself with Ayurveda. That's why I'm telling with confidence. I used to be taken every other day when I was a student of Ayurveda. I was every other day in a hospital. They had put steroids and bronchodilators and oxygen. And I was very famous for being an asthma patient. So even now, my classmates, when they see me, the first thing they ask is, how is your asthma? It is now more than 25 years. I have not had an attack. I took Ayurvedic medicine for nearly 7, 8, 10 years. But I can say acute attack, Ayurveda could not help. Only because of modern medicine, I am alive. Or I would have gone into status asthmaticus and maybe died. But even when I found that modern doctors, their treatment is also, based on dosha only. They are not understanding it. So in my case, I found that earlier in the beginning stages, there is more phlegm, and later stages of asthma, it becomes more spasmodic. It becomes more vatic. First stage, it is more kapha vata, then it becomes vata kapha, and then it becomes vatika. This is very important to clinically distinguish. And there is no way, you cannot scan the doshas, or you have to see the behavior and understand the gunas, and then that is why the gunas are mentioned here. Viparita gunair maruta samprashamyati means that if the person has bronchospasm, see, when you have kapha, you will try to give more ushna medicine, druksha medicine to remove the kapha. But that is not good for vata. You will aggravate the spasm. So I remember when I used to get modern medicine treatment for asthma, they used to give me a bronchodilator. They used to give me mucolytic medicines. So mucolytic medicine is to dissolve the kapha and clear the blockage. And bronchodilator is for dilating like theophylline, salbutamol. There is this another terbutaline sulfate. I know all these medicines because I had to use all this. I was just 15, 16 years. I suffered for nearly 10 years and I thought I would never come out of it. But Ayurvedic medicines over a long period of time, gradually the need for modern medicines, inhalers all stopped. So I could clearly distinguish that when there is more obstruction, when there is more kapha, I have to give kapha medicine. So in Ayurveda, we have medicines like Dashamula Kadutrayam, which is very good for kaphavada condition. Then we have medicines like Bala Jirakadi, which we give when Vata is dominating. So now if any asthma patient comes, we have to check these two things. And many a time, we have to consider inflammation also. Inflammation is there. Even though it is Vata Kapha dominant, in many conditions, many patients present as Tridoshik. We have to take care of Pitta also. So the association of Pitta in Tamaga Shwasa is also described in Ayurvedic texts. No. Yat kinchit, everything is Viruddhopakrama. So that is why we have different medications. Yat kinchit kabhavadagnam ushnam vadanulomanam. Yat kinchit kabhavadagnam. You have to choose medicines which are both Kabhahara and Vatahara. If you take a medicine that is Kabhahara and another medicine that is Vatahara, but Kabha Vriddhikara, you should not choose medicines that are having antagonistic action. There are many medicines. So either by combining or by choosing medicines which are pacifying both doshas, you should not take medicines which are cancelling each other. That is why in Ayurveda all these formulations are there. Is that clear, Shreyas? So, yat kinchit kaphavadagana. You must take a medicine which is kabhahara and will not increase vata. You must choose a medicine which is vatahara but will not increase kapha. Usually they will increase. But there are medicines like that. Now, if I take bala for vata, bala jiraga nagare. Nayopaya ayanamitai bala jiraga nagare. This is for shwasa with a little dominance of vata. So bala, jiraga and nagara. Bala is very vatahara. But we are adding jiraga and nagara also to make sure that kapha doesn't aggravate much. And both of them are vata shamana also. So we have to choose the medicines very, very carefully. I cannot simply take, for example, taking pepper when we have fever is completely prohibited in Ayurveda, but people use that. Rasam. Rasam, I don't know North India whether they are aware. In South India, there is a rasam, which is made with pepper and garlic and when fever comes, I have seen a lot of people telling take rasam and sadam. But according to Ayurveda, it is not at all advisable. You should avoid pepper, you should avoid garlic when you have fever. Because pitta is involved in that. That is Viruddhopakrama. So, because all treatments which we do must be balancing. You have to choose them. So there is a book called Siddha Mantram in which the dosha karmas of all the medicines have been described. So when you say Vadagnam, Vadaghna Pittalam, Vadakabhagnam, Vadakabhagna Pittalam, Vada Pittagnam, Vada Pittagna Shleshmalam. So every dravya you have to analyze in that way. It's not enough to know that this is Vada Pittahara, but it is Vada Pittahara but increasing Shleshma. Then you cannot give that. So you have to choose a medicine which is Vada Pittagnam Shleshma Udasinam. If you take a medicine which is Vada Pittagnam and Shleshmalam, then it will increase kapha. Is that clear? So some dravyas are Vadagnam, some are Vadaghna Pitta Shleshmalam. Means some dravyas will pacify Vata without disturbing Pitta and Kapha. Some other dravyas, they will pacify Vata but they will disturb Pitta and Kapha. So that you cannot use. Is that clear, Shreyas? So you have to choose the medicines that will not be Viruddhopaka. It depends on your choice of medicines. That is why, it is not always possible to treat by reading books. You cannot self-treat by reading books because these subtle balancing measures you need to read a little bit. So certain general advices should also go to the common man, that in common cold, rasam is okay, but once you have fever, you should avoid pepper. This kind of information should be made more public. Today, there are a lot of misconceptions there. We are going to discuss this chapter. The pace at which we are going in this course, we will complete only one chapter. So I made a calculation. Its average for 1 hour is 3 shlokas we are taking. The 9,000 shlokas in Caraka-Saṁhitā. So if we complete 100 hours, we will complete only 300 slokas. So you can imagine how many hours we need to complete the whole of Caraka-Saṁhitā. Nobody is studying the Samhita like this. So it is a lifelong process. That is why Vagbhada has said, Pratitandrabhiyoge tu Purusha Ayusha Samshaya. If you are learning Charasamhita and you are saying, oh, in 1-2 months I learned the whole Charasamhita, then it means that you have not learned anything.
Sir, is there any book for to identify what type of disease one have and what is the probable treatment, as you told? But besides this Caraka-Saṁhitā, is there any Ayurvedic text is linked with this Caraka-Saṁhitā to identify the disease for treatment, basic treatment for basic, suppose for treating the stomach related problem or day-to-day problem?
So that home remedies are there. Textbook is for more advanced treatment. It is for clinicians. You cannot treat with a book. You need expertise, clinical expertise. What Charaka calls as pratipatti jnanam. Yogaireva chikitsan hi deshadyatnyo aparadhyati. Charaka says, don't follow my teachings. Understand the principle.
Sir,
Satyeva.
will you share some of your experience, as you told that of you have just given the example of.
Yeah, whatever comes in the context of discussion, I will share, because the goal of this course is to familiarize us with the learning of Caraka-Saṁhitā. That it is. When you are not speaking, please switch off the mic, because there is. The author of the book, Siddha Mantra, is a very eminent Vaidya called Keshava. He was a very good clinician.
Unsteady kind of person. Oh, what is the symptoms and what is the cause and what is the effect and how the treatment will start and how prolonged the treatment will go, this sort of thing. When regarding the treatment,
that should be another course on how home remedies for Ayurveda. See, we are studying the Caraka-Saṁhitā and we have reached only 60 verses. There are 9,000 verses. By the time we finish that, all these things will be known. But who has the time? So that is why Vagbhada says, Pratitantrabhi yoge tu Purusha Ayusha Samshaya. How much time you need to study Caraka-Saṁhitā? Purusha Ayusha Samshaya is needed. Your whole Purusha Ayusha is needed to study Caraka-Saṁhitā. So the question is, if you read it at least once, and I found that if you are spending 6 hours a day to read and engage in the Caraka-Saṁhitā, you will complete only 18 slokas per day. You can calculate that how many years you will need to complete one round of 9,000 slokas. If you do that once, then you will become ready to start some small practice. Keep reading. Eventually, as you grow older, your knowledge will increase. So the knowledge to become a Vaidya requires a lot of training. But knowing just little bit of Ayurveda to take care of yourself as primary healthcare level, that is more. India had such a folk tradition. So Siddha Mantra was written by Keshava, and his son Bopadeva wrote a very elaborate commentary on that. This is an amazing book. Based on all clinical experiences, he has classified plants into 57 categories, showing how the name of the commentator is Bopadeva. This is also a fascinating text. Actually, when you start getting introduced to the whole literature of Ayurveda, I have always felt how little time we have in our life. I don't know which book to start. Sometimes I have read little Ashtangardayam, little Charaka, and not reaching anywhere. That's why in olden times they say, see, in Kali Yuga, Ashtanga Hridayam is easy. Atri Kridayuge Vaidyaha. द्वापरे सुश्रुतस्मृतः कलौ वाग्भटनामा च गरिमात्र प्रतिष्ठते. So kalau vagbhata cha. In Kali Yuga it is vagbhata that we have to learn, and vagbhata has simplified it for us, but vagbhata has not written for the common man. Some portions are there for the common man. Vagbhata is written mainly for chikitsaka, whereas Charaka has, no, I don't think it is the same Bopadeva. This Bopadeva seems to be a physician. I must look a little bit more into this. This Bopadeva also wrote a Shatashloki. And because of Bopadeva's commentary, the Siddha Mantra, we know a lot of things. Father, son, because it was the son who wrote the commentary on the father's work, a lot of information which would have otherwise been lost has got preserved. Bopadeva wrote commentary on Siddha Mantra called Siddha Mantra Prakasha. Siddha Mantra is the work of Keshava. Keshava was a clinician. So, in this, I want to make this clear again. This course is to introduce and help us understand that a very serious study. What is the depth of the textbooks of Ayurveda? It is more like an introductory overview. I mean, getting a taste of what Caraka-Saṁhitā is. That is what I was told, to read the text very deeply. Actually, I have also summarized. I have not gone so deep. Even more, many ways of reading is possible. If we go even more deeply, then our pace will be very. What I have planned now is to complete one chapter, within this frame, so that we get a whole nutshell. Because the first chapter is like the seed of the whole Samhita. That is the structure. So if you read the first chapter very carefully, it is like the foundation for the whole text. The rest of the chapters our reading will become faster. This is how our traditional writings were made. Sushruta in the Sutrasthana says, Bijam chikitsidasya etat samasena pragirtitam savimsham adhyaya shatam asya vyakhya bhavishyati. See, for us, the introduction is like the foundation. A modern textbook introduction is only like a preparation. The details come later. In Ayurvedic writing, in a traditional writing, the introduction is the foundation. Everything is there. Samapyade sthanamidam tantrasyasya rahasyavat atrartha sutrida sukshma pratanyante hi sarvata. So atra artha sukshma sutrita. So usually what we can find is the first chapter they spend more time. When I was a student, one of our teachers was taking Ragadi Rogan, one sloka. It went on for months. Now there are many commentaries. I don't recommend any. I can share, because when I was a student, I never read any English translation. Even now, I'm not reading any English translation. At the beginning of the course, I shared an online version of Caraka-Saṁhitā with English. Those of you who want to have a look, but I don't recommend any English translation because technical terms have been very wrongly translated. So we will not get deeper meanings if you read the English translation, my opinion. You will read phlegm while all those many misleading words have come. So I don't recommend it. Yes, so what were we discussing just before? Yeah. The Sutra Sthana it's like a foundation. The first chapter is also foundational. So it's like the seed. Then the rest of the Samhita is like you're growing. Like inside the seed, the whole plant is there, right? So in this chapter, the whole essence of the Samhita is there. That is why it makes sense to begin this journey of Caraka-Saṁhitā with an in-depth study of the first chapter. It gives you enough time to decide whether this is my stuff. So after this, dropouts will drop out. Those who are interested will continue, because they will know what is the scope of the Shastra, what it will help us to obtain, the prayojan, everything becomes clear within the study of the first chapter. So as I was telling my teacher, he used to take the same sloka again, and we were worried. We were asked him, what about the syllabus? Should we not complete? Then he told, in his Gurukula, first 6 months, only this sloka was taught. Because there was no thinking of finishing syllabus in those days. In those days, see, when in olden times, when somebody studied musical instrument, sometimes the sadhana would go for 25 years. After that, only a musician comes. He's a maestro. Today, everything is like junk food. Quickly, we have to produce musicians. So all little bit they will know, but they are not masters. So to gain mastery of a Shastra, you have to do sadhana on that. And that is time consuming. Minimum 12 years was spent to study Ayurveda. But for that, the foundation was laid in young age. Today, without the foundation, we are coming to learn Ayurveda. So that is the reason there is a very big, limitation. Yes, Apamarga Tanduli Aragvathiya, we can adapt it to modern times. The principles are there in that chapter that we can study. And drugs we may need to replace with the ones that are today available. Samskarana of this text has to happen. Vistarayati leshoktam sankshipatyadi vistaram samskarta kurude tantram puranam cha punarnavam. So a new Samhita, the time has come for a new Samhita to be born. So in Caraka-Saṁhitā also, as we read, we will find that certain portions are outdated. Certain portions are, timeless. That distinction we have to make. But in Caraka-Saṁhitā, the timeless elements are still huge. So without studying it carefully, we cannot decide the grahya tyajyas, which portions should be updated, which should be preserved as it is. That is a work of the future. And these things are not to be by-hearted. Usually it is field work. You have to see Apamarga. See, the word Apamarga itself means that it is keeping us out of the way. Have you anybody experienced Apamarga? Aciranthus? If you walk into a bush of Aciranthus, all those spikelets will come and catch on to, like arrows, it will come and just attach to our body. It can even hurt your skin. So that is why Apamarga. So when you are studying the words of the plants by seeing, feeling, experiencing, there is no question of by-hearting. Today we are sitting in a concrete room and just looking at words and trying to. In olden days, when they discuss about these herbs, students would get exposed to it. So the teaching method was different. Okay. So I think our time is up for today. Let us continue tomorrow. Namaste.
स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। रामकृष्णाय ते